Final Fantasy XIV is filled with hundreds of hours of cutscenes. These serve as the medium to tell the story of the game, and for the most part are there to move the gameplay forward. But then you have cutscenes that are a literal cut above the rest. Those scenes that are a major revelation, a time of sadness, or leading to a huge engagement. The cutscenes that happen near the end of Stormblood are one such example, and none are more important than Parley on the front lines. We will examine this scene more closely, highlighting its importance from a story and emotional perspective. First off, let's set the stage. The Eorzean Alliance and Garlean Empire are beginning to square off on the border of Alamigo. The Alliance is busy preparing their defences, a task made even harder now that they're aware of an alchemical weapon the Empire is holding called Black Rose. The Empire didn't take the liberation of Alamigo and Doma lying down. It spent the past year subduing other rebellions which were inspired by the ones we took part in, the crushed rebellions in Dalmasca being the most notable example. Once the provinces were secure, it turned its military might to Eorzea. As we discuss the matter with the Alliance leadership, we get word regarding the Emperor's movements and a rather surprising meeting that's about to occur.
When we sent envoys to the Imperial Army to request talks, they returned with the message that Varys Zos Galvus would be attending.
The Emperor himself? Well, Varys did sanction the Popularis peace mission. But knowing that an Ascian walks in his son's skin, I do not see how we can trust him or anyone from that nest of vipers.
The Alliance would proceed with negotiations regardless, if only to give ourselves more time to prepare. We do, however, require your cooperation.
Right. Yes. So, as a condition for the talks to go forward, the Empire has requested that a member of the Scions be present. There'll be a representative from each Alliance nation, of course, but I'm afraid we have to ask that you come along too.
Very well. I shall attend as the Scions representative.
In case you're wondering why I didn't ask you, the Empire also requested the presence of Eorzea's champion.
Now this is pretty significant. No time during the previous wars with Garlemald did the Eorzean leadership have a chance to sit and talk with the Emperor, and the most we got from the Black Wolf guys from Baelsar were letters delivered via envoys. Now that the city-states and Doma are united under the banner of the Eorzean Alliance, the Emperor feels he can treat with them. The scene opens up somewhere near the Gimlet Dark, in a tent built by the Empire for these talks. The 8 representatives of the Alliance and Scions sit at one side of a large conference table awaiting the Emperor's arrival. Flanking the entrance are Julia and Anea Quo Soranus, the Emperor's personal guards, whom have served Varys since his days as High Legatus. The room would appear to be imbalanced with so many members of the Alliance and only the Emperor to represent the Empire.
Esteemed representatives of the Eorzean Alliance, on behalf of the Garlean Empire, I thank you for inviting me here today. As this parley was convened at your request, I invite you to speak first.
This is some beautiful cinematography. Many pureblooded Garleans are quite large, and Varys, even with his armor, makes a very imposing figure. He may be outnumbered at this table, but his presence alone makes up for it. No one at this table can fully grasp the significance of these talks. It's only with the benefit of hindsight that we can truly appreciate their importance, for the battle to come will herald the Eighth Umbral Calamity in the alternate timeline. Namino takes the lead and outlines why they have gathered today.
Very well, Your Radiance. I, Nanimo Ulnamo, 17th in the line of Ul, should be pleased to oblige you. As recent events in Alamigo and Doma have made plain, the subjugation and exploitation of neighboring nations is not a sustainable policy. Should this day end in war, you may very well defeat us, but you will never extinguish the people's desire for freedom. Though it may not be in our lifetime, there will be another revolution, another war, and the cycle will continue. Domar has entered into a concord with the nations of Eorzea, a partnership wherein we recognize one another as equals. Garlemald could be afforded similar treatment. You need only set aside your ambitions and join us in paving a path towards peace.
You will not win me over with sophistry, Your Grace. As you know only too well, this alliance lacks the strength to keep the peace within its own borders. Even now, your struggles with the Beastmen continue unabated.
The talks quickly begin to spiral out of control from this point forward, as emotions start to impair judgment. Varys for his part keeps a level head, and seems to be one of the few at the table who can say this. Indeed, for every question and statement an Alliance member brings up, he has an educated and logical answer.
Our people are willing to die for their freedom. A great many already have, and countless more will, if we don't put an end to this madness here and now.
We brought order and stability to your lives. This madness and bloodshed is of your own making. You broke the peace, not Garlemald.
Peace. Order. You kill our peoples, despoil our lands, take everything that is ours. And what? You expect us to lick the boot that grinds our faces into the dirt?
I expect you to weigh the costs. To recognize that countless lives have been lost on both sides in pursuit of a greater good, and to not squander all we have achieved in a fit of petulance.
The scene playing out before us makes total sense from an emotional perspective. The people of Eorzea and Doma have been hounded or oppressed by the Empire for many years till this point, and now that they have the Emperor's ear, they are unintentionally letting their inner feelings be known. The Alliance leaders are somewhat taken aback by Varys' responses, and his awareness of matters within their borders.
You speak as if your people were the first to have been driven from their homes. Limsa Lominsa was built by wayward souls in search of a place to call their own. On the shores of Vilbrand we found it, and from those humble beginnings did we grow and flourish. And all without robbing our neighbors of their liberty.
So saith the pirate. Am I to believe that you simply asked the kobolds to yield up their lands and that they were happy to oblige you? That you did not drive them out like rats in the hold of one of the many ships seized by your privateers? I will concede that after centuries of exile, reclamation may be mistaken for invasion. Nevertheless, it is not. And those who till stolen soil have no right to object when cast out in turn.
Your uncompromising nature rivals that of the Ixal. They too lament circumstances which they themselves perpetuate. Were they but to embrace peace, we would welcome them with open arms. Indeed, some few have done just that, and now receive of the Twelve's Wood's bounty. Would that your people might learn from their example.
You dare compare us to the Birdmen? You who thought to invoke the 12 and threaten all of creation?
Your Radiance. I fear I can personally attest to the dangers of pursuing one's vision with such righteous fervor. For 1,000 years, the Holy See of Ishgard waged war with dragons. 1,000 years of sacrifice, of sorrow and hate, in which we bathed in the blood of friend and foe alike. Had it gone on any longer, we may well have drowned. Yet we have chosen to raise ourselves out of this bloody spiral, and have since made peace with our former enemy.
So I understand. No doubt the dragons were more receptive to your overtures in the wake of their leader's demise.
Despite what you people may believe, I am not wont to choose the sword over the olive branch. 'Tis but a pity men are loath to accept one without first being shown the other.
You can see the pattern here. The leader seems to be taking turns to jab at Varys, but he deflects each attack with one of his own, in every instance stating the truth of the matter at hand.
I came here in the hope of finding some speck of common ground, but I see now these discussions will accomplish nothing.
And this is where having a third party comes into play. Alizé speaks up to keep the talks from breaking down completely.
Wait! I beg you. This meeting was supposed to be a chance to find a way forward together, not to bemoan the missteps which brought us here. Please, if you truly consider violence a last resort, there must be a way we can come to an agreement.
It kinda makes you wonder what Alphinaud would have done in her place. Namino, to her credit, kept her calm, showing how much she's matured in the past couple years.
As Mistress Alizé says, we did not come here to bicker over the past, but to discuss how we might strive towards a brighter future. Emperor Varys, may I suggest a short recess, that all present might compose themselves prior to beginning anew?
Very well. I pray this intermission will suffice to move these talks in a more constructive direction.
In this first round of talks, I must give Varys full credit here. He acts as an emperor should, and made it clear he's a well-educated and strong leader. After the exchange, I would not blame him for looking down upon the Eorzean alliance.
Now then, who would have the floor?
Before we resume, I wish to offer you an apology. After you graciously accepted our invitation to discuss an armistice, we have done naught but rebuke you at every opportunity. I believe I speak for all of us when I say we are deeply sorry for our discourtesy.
This is a sound decision from the Alliance members after what just happened, putting everyone on the right path of understanding each other before negotiations can begin.
I think all here can understand the desire to reclaim one's homeland, but why expand further? That is my question.
Recognizing the threat icons posed to the world, Solus Zos Galvus decreed that they were to be eradicated. To this end, he began a campaign to unite all lands under the Garlean banner. Or so we were taught. Yet the Emperor only reached the burn, the Baron said to have been laid waste by icons, after conquering all the lands that lay between. What is more, I am quite certain the practice of summoning was not nearly so widespread in the days before the Empire's founding.
When you put it like that, it all starts to sound like an excuse, doesn't it? But to distract from what? Why are you really waging this war?
Finally, you ask the right question. I can but hope you heed mine answer and at last accept the righteousness of our cause. My goal is this: to return the world to the way it once was, the way it was always meant to be. In doing so, mankind will be made whole once more. No longer will we suffer from the dissension born of our differences. There will be but one race, a perfect race,
As we were when time began.
What in Rolga's name are you talking about?
I am talking about the origins of this star, of the source and its 13 reflections. At the instant of the great sundering, 'twas not only the world that was shattered, but mankind itself. Thus were we divided into myriad races, each with its own unique imperfections. That is why man looks upon his neighbor and feels fear and hatred, why he wages war, why he kills his brother. You all in your own way have proven as much today. The peace you seek is but a fleeting solution to a fundamental problem. One which calls for more drastic measures. To bring about everlasting peace, our worlds must be rejoined. That is the goal the Empire would see realized. The glorious future unto which we shall one day shepherd mankind.
A rejoining of worlds?
I have heard this tale of the source and its reflections before.
Are these not the self-same desires as the Ascians?
You may recognize this dialogue, usually out of the mouth of an Ascian, but here's the Emperor of Garlemald stating the same. Varys only recently learned of the genesis of the Empire, and what its part to play was in the grand scheme, with Varys appearing to have resigned himself to a role as a piece on the board.
To be a pawn, free from the burden of choice, would be a blessing. But I forswore that privilege the day I learned that the Garlean Empire was built by the hand of an Ascian.
I come not to conquer, but to liberate. To free man from the prison of divergence.
Imagine a world united. One perfect race beneath a single standard. An army before whose might these servants of darkness and light would fly as leaves in a storm, never again to meddle in man's affairs. We would be the masters of our own fate.
It's clear now to everyone in the room that Varys was merely humouring the Alliance. He never had any intention of negotiating with them, rather he was giving them one choice.
I bid you join me, not as subjects of Garlemald, but of a new nation.
And together we shall win freedom for ourselves
and generations yet unborn.
You want to trigger another half-dozen calamities? You can't be serious!
Have you forgotten how many died? There will be no one left.
Do you truly imagine we would aid you in your bloodletting?
It is unthinkable, unconscionable.
And what is the alternative? To be as cattle waiting for slaughter? I would have us work together that we might take fate into our own hands.
Into your hands, perhaps. But what of the other worlds, your radiance? With every calamity, you obliterate a star and every soul that dwells on it.
To the Ascians, we are all but tiny, momentary specks within an indifferent universe. We cannot hope to oppose them until we have been made whole once more.
This is a curious stance to take after getting the Alliance leaders riled up. He knows full well we oppose the Ascians and seeks to appeal to that, but after everything he just said, it falls on deaf ears. Given we all know by now that an Ascian walks around in Xenos' body, I suspect some of them thought Varys may well be a similar being.
Are these truly the words of Garlemald's ruler? The flaws and foibles which you so abhor are what make us who we are. Every nation, even yours, Emperor Varys, is made whole through the combination of these imperfections, the strengths of one compensating for the weaknesses of another. While it is true that man succumbs all too often to anger and avarice, he may yet overcome his baser instincts through the forming of bonds with others, fostering community and cooperation. That the protector of an empire should not only reject these fundamental truths, but seek to change them at so dear a cost to life is indefensible. Such a man is not fit to govern.
And you, warrior of light, would you refuse me as well?
This is an easy answer for us to give. Not only is he a defender of Eorzea, but one who seeks to save the very star. And we know a truth that none at this table do. Hydaelyn is greatly weakened after the past 7 rejoinings. An 8th would spell disaster for her, the Source and its remaining reflections, saying nothing of what's awaiting us at creation's end.
It would seem the Alliance is of one mind on this matter.
You Eorzeans never cease to disappoint me. Though I suppose I have only myself to blame for expecting more from savages. This discussion is at an end. I bid you make ready for our next meeting. It will not be at the negotiating table.
And with that, the talks are over, and the Battle of the Gimlet Dark would begin right after. I find this meeting to be fascinating. Varys started off well, but quickly laid out a policy he knew full well we would take issue with. But I suppose in the alternate timeline his attitude would make more sense. Even if his forces lose ground in the upcoming battle, in that timeline he had Black Rose ready to deploy, which would spell the end of the Alliance, but unknown to Varys, the Garlean Empire would follow suit. And that, my fellow lore enthusiasts, is Parley on the front lines.